CPLC meeting. I want to do a quick thank you to a few additional. I see a lot of familiar faces, but I know that Randy had kind of challenged some of the followers on his social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. He had challenged a few of them to show up today, so we see a few new faces, as well as some of the students from the Police Foundation. So thank you very much for coming. Welcome. You see some other familiar faces as well. So today, James Thomas is up here sitting as the newly elected co-chair of the. Welcome. I'm still going to lead us through this. The agenda today, and James will take over. So without further ado, we usually start it off by our crime analyst and our detective office, the crime stats and any trends that we faced in the past month. So with that said, this is Detective Constable Adam LeBlanc.
Good afternoon, everybody. As the staff said, Detective Constable LeBlanc. I'm going to share with you a quick snapshot of what's been going on in the past 4 weeks. As always, we start with a community map here. Shows our representation. Right now, this map, there's one more name on there, which will be on there next go around. That's Mr. Thomas, the new chair, and we'll have his name up there. But other than that, everything should be up to date. Representation is really useful representation if anybody knows anyone that's interested. Our first map here, this is traffic related. This is the collisions in the division right here. The dots represent the type of collision as shown in the legend. And then there's what we call a heat overlay out here to show the concentrations. This happens to our map right now. That was kind of odd. It's like just one gigantic red dot kind of. That just signifies that the collisions were fairly spread out through the entire division this month. So there wasn't one really intense area of happen by streets and stuff like that. Which happened about inside.
Real quick, we go to a meeting about 43 service-wide, but specifically 43. The information that provides to the superintendent and the other staff is instrumental in making sure that we're deploying our people to the brand before. One injury as far as a collision up there that Adam's going to show you is our enforcement. There was some enforcement up there. But by and large, I think that's one of those instances where some community members maybe saw an accident or two and thought that there's an ongoing issue of accidents up at that intersection. Where you can tell, and this is straight from the stats, is we had one this past week. Now there might be more, or this past month. There might be over a period of time more than that, but we are deploying our people to where the accidents are taking place. Okay? Thanks.
The next map, again, another traffic map. And what this map shows is, again, it's the same deal overlay, which is showing the concentration of collisions, but then now the crosses there represent the enforcement, where we've written our warnings and tickets to every month. And as you can see, October was a pretty busy month. In October, it was we had the most tickets for 1 month period in the year in October. So you guys are working hard, doing a lot of enforcement right now. Well, now to some crime maps. This first map is the break and enters. We've been doing really good with our break and enters stats so far this year. We're in October. If you can remember, our break and enters went up a little bit in October. You can see we had a pretty big rash through this area here. Two things that drove that was we had some apartment entries, which we haven't experienced much of this year. We had about 8 apartment entries, push the numbers up a bit, and then we had several daytime residential entries. And I'll just share with you what we're on this map. This little thing knock I put here. Incidences in the past month, we've had several meetings where people are home, have to go around and knock on your door several times a day for somebody to answer no answers. They kick the door in, they pry the door, they break into it. Now we had 2 instances where people were home. They knock and they say, "Oh, I'm not expecting anybody, so I'm not going to answer that." One incident, the person looked at the window and I it, so I'm not going to answer it. So I'm going to answer it. I'm going to say the door was open and someone's trying to break in. Now, people who do beanies are typically just looking to quickly grab something, so in all cases, they always run away, but both of those would have at least acknowledged. Hello, I'm home, but I don't know who you are, so I'm not answering, or I don't want any salesman, you just come up with something to say, and that person would have moved along. And then on top of that, we also had incidents, we always talk about this, if you see something suspicious in your neighborhood, please give us a call. We had occasions where people came home, they saw something that thought was suspicious, but they're like, I'm not too sure if that is suspicious or whatever, they just left it. Then they called several hours later, and sure enough, a crime had occurred in their neighborhood when they had seen that. So what's suspicious may not always be what you think. Like one of these entries was committed, the culprits were described as a male and a female, approximately 6 years of age. A male and a female walking through the neighborhood is suspicious. I'm not saying call 911 every time you see something you don't know walking through your neighborhood, but if you see something like if they're coming out of backyards, that's suspicious. If they're just walking up and down the street, well, maybe if you won't notice them, you want to call the 2222. We will follow up with that. But if you see someone walking up between houses you've never seen it before, we want to hear about that as soon as possible. And moving along robberies. Our robberies haven't been up this year, but we are driving them down. We drove them down again slightly in October, so we'll keep pushing on that. Not too much for there. Pretty average robberies what we're seeing, and they are going down again, which is good. Oh, one thing I just forgot to announce too, I actually spent this like 20 minutes with two of those break entries. Those residential daytime entries are major crime unit. They actually just identified a male who's responsible for several of those. So they'll be looking to locate and arrest him as soon as possible. He's actually committed entries in our division and in Europe that we know for sure. Be arrested as soon as possible and get help doing that stuff. So that's good news. Then theft from autos. This map, a little bit more docile than we used to see. Our theft from autos have gone up a little bit this year. It looks like we're having a trend of some younger people, like teenage 18 to young 20s, breaking into cars and stealing them this year, which we haven't seen for a while. Mostly older model cars.
Perspective that offers, what some opportunities with respect to having one in the car in the morning, leaving the piece in there, great to get the crossed off, but as I say, it's a prime opportunity, and that's how we have that always going in the past. So keep that in mind, and that's people in the community.
I read your warning.
I did not see his presentation. There we go.
And then lastly, our seven major crime indicators. We're getting close to the end of the year, so this is pretty much what this will look like when we close up the year. There would have to be something pretty drastic to change these numbers. I can't just fluctuate very much. So another pretty good year. We're up 4%, but in total, that's only 82 occurrences. Several other indicators. We've driven down break and enters again, which is amazing. Even if it only says 2%, that's pretty amazing because we've driven down quite a bit in previous years. The flip in the robberies, but so the past years we've driven 5 years we've driven those down. And eventually they're going to bounce back up every now and then, or else we just all the other jobs don't want. So that's a major part of the And then my last slide was the snatch stuff. That's it for me for today.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. The one thing that I would just repeat, and I know that Adam has spoke of it, and that is, especially part of the reason for us to all get together monthly here is so you as CPLC members or even just guests can take it back to your communities and relay some of the information that we're passing along. And that the biggest piece of advice is especially for our senior community. If someone is knocking on your door, I know there's a hesitancy to answer, especially after a certain hour. At least respond, because as Adam indicated, push that person onto somebody else's place, right? If you may not know them, just at least let them know that there is someone home, your friends and your neighborhood, okay? All right. Then we typically go to our community safety team, and Julie's already up there, so I'll let Julie go.
Steph wanted to
Yeah.
talk about your project costs.
So one of our divisional initiatives, and it is wrapping up, was we realized, especially through the warm summer months, we have a lot more of attendance in the community parks and the green spaces, and sometimes you get situations where there's alcohol or drugs being used. Each year we focus on it during the warmer months. This year we came up with a divisional initiative called Project COPS. With a K, it stands for Keeping Our Parks Safe. And this is one of the officers that works with the community safety team here, Dave Sawyer. Just a little video about some of the efforts being made in the parks in our divisions.
With a K stands for Keep Our Parks Safe. Monitoring officers 43 mission, utilize bicycles to control the parks, pathways, the waterfront, playgrounds, and other spaces within 43 mission. Project started back in July with the goal of ensuring a safe environment for the community for enforcement of the License Act, Controlled Drug Substance Act, Trespass to Property Act, and other criminal code offenses. Positive and environmental preservation are another key factors. Over the past 4 months, several significant arrests, including personal for attempted murder, large drug seizures, and weapons arrests. Project COPS officers have also been called upon for multiple search and rescue calls for persons with mental health issues, lost elderly persons, and missing children. The community is very appreciative of what we do. A lot of times we come to the parks, we are approached by families, kids, and we do stop and we have full opportunities with the bicycles and the ATVs. And this is a great opportunity to see police officers in a different light. And again, seeing us on alternative vehicles is a shock to a lot of people, but they really do enjoy it. They enjoy speaking with the police and they enjoy speaking with the community.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, that initiative is actually wrapping up this week. That's not to say that we still won't be in the parks, just because the weather is getting colder, a little bit more inclement. We don't see as many community members out there in the park. So once again, we're trying to deploy our people in an efficient, cost-effective way. We won't be in the parks as often. Summer, as the warm weather, we'll be visiting. Okay, thank you.
And I just want to remind everybody that our vision is for this year, and Auxiliary Sergeant Claire Holmes, if you could stand up for me. So Claire's been running our toy drive for years and years. She's been an auxiliary member for 35 years here at the Front Service. She's definitely seen it all. Claire runs it, so any requests that I get in, go to Claire, and as you can see the toys come in at the back, the auxiliary teams come in and sort it for, toddlers or teenagers or whatever they need. Claire, you often have toys. You speak to that we're often seeking toys for maybe toddlers and teenagers.
Yes, it's the extreme age groups, the very young and the 15, 16-year-olds that we get stuck with.
Perfect. So if you're getting the word out for anyone that's looking to drop toys off at the station, also Paul or Randy and I are certainly available to run off toys. Sometimes we'll have a community group who will something that we need with the family. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Those that I know are going to make a couple of friends today. What's up? See you. Yeah, let's do quick. Actually, of course, Julie and Manny and I should recommend for many of the officers, but I had the chance before we proceed to close up for a month of filled with files. Obviously, cameras, but as speaking with them today, the cameras are actually up and functioning. They're running through the discussion about alerting people because we're not trying to do this secretly. We're not.
Julie. So that's actually Phil may show us some of the suggestions we'd like to see going forward. And there are more to do. Be a work in progress, which you know. I want to mention is right across the city of Toronto, and we've talked about it before, offering crime prevention through environment and these audits. To discourage crime. Here, and that 43 division actually is qualified to do it, and have the actual piece of paper that audits for places of worship. So some of the horrific events I know a lot have that in the last few weeks, and we would maybe go into someone else's land. We, if it's not us, we'll make arrangements. Thank you, guys.
What's the name of the
I would, and Julia as well. Crossing the road. Go there. Something very small. Bring to your attention built in there. Talking briefly the tree lighting from the outside, inside. What's going on, whatever. And there will be
And then there was, we didn't speak in actually the vacant house, but also regarding the service dog and service dogs being allowed in. I know the superintendent, I'm going to reiterate it because I think circumstances, you really should report it at the time of the incident, right? Basically speaks to all the concerns that were brought up. I mean, had they not been and corrected on this, I'm going to
the 5 guys, young guys, in the coffee shop, and they were harassing servants. And then I understand that later on that day, they came and cut the seats with their knives. And then also they stole the box, the money box, and they just left. So I guess my question for you guys would be, what should be the appropriate response in terms of both the patrons and the staff, team staff, when this incident? And then apparently yesterday they came back again. So it looks like they're targeting this particular Tim Hortons. So what should be?
Well, first and foremost, if you're seeing a criminal offense where the theft of the poppy boxes, that should be reported by the Tim Hortons staff immediately. But I guess I have a question for you, Pat. Is this information that you're getting, is it coming from the Tim Hortons staff? Is it observations or just word of mouth?
On the first time when it happened, I was there.
And this was with the group of kids that you say were harassing?
Yeah, the first time I was there, and actually tried to tell them, please behave yourself, you know, in a coffee shop. And they were calling names in the end. So after that, I had to leave. So, and then after that, then the people told me what happened at the coffee shop.
Okay, so the answer is twofold. In the future, if somebody tells you that they've witnessed or been victim of a criminal offense, the immediate advice back to them is, did you phone the police? Because we need to know that at the time. We're aware that area is, like many others, the Tim Hortons is very busy. That's a very busy store. And I'll say this as part of what my observations. I was down at the Gilbert Plaza at Tim Hortons yesterday after school, and it was very busy. Lots of teenagers, and they were boisterous. They were loud, but there was no criminality. They were just waiting for their hot chocolate after I spoke to them. Copy box, absolutely. That should have been reported right there and then. If you see a criminal offense, you don't necessarily have to be a staff member of Tim Hortons. But if you see a criminal offense taking place, a theft, an assault, somebody pushing and shoving, you should phone 911. Okay? Okay. Because I can tell you, we read on a daily basis, we read the occurrences, and I have the detective in charge of our crime box at Tim Hortons at that location. So that means it didn't get reported. So when you speak to whoever it was that relayed that information, make sure that they do tell us. Okay? Okay. Do you have any other concerns, issues that need to be brought forward? Hi. Okay. I'm sorry. We'll give it to you in a minute.
Me first?
Sure.
Okay. So my name is Kamisha Cox. I'm the Community Engagement Manager in the Office of MPP Mitzi Hunter. So in several meetings that I've been at, and also constituents coming forward, there's been constant complaints of concern around gang activity. What's happening between youth at one park and Galloway. It's when people being very in the community. And it's time to fight, and there's also talk about the division. What's going on, and what
Okay. We do have a meetings. But I'll tell you the backstory. Ultimately, it was through community engagement. It was actually an officer doing a proactive patrol, and we were speaking to some community members at the Orton Park and Lawrence area. And I'll just leave it at that, so we're not getting into specific details. The person that he was speaking to said, there's an awful lot of unreported crime going on in this neighborhood, which speaks to what I was just saying to Pat here, is if we don't know about it, chance of us actually addressing it. So then we started speaking to other community members in that area, and sure enough, they were all kind of saying the same thing. And there was a group of young kids, teenagers, that were doing petty robberies or petty assaults, I should say, kind of bullying, I would say is probably a better way of saying it. But there were actually a couple of unreported robberies where a bag of chips and a bottle of pop were stolen, something to that effect. None of which the police were told about. Became aware of that, we reached out to Cedar Break Lead for that school. We spent some time in uniform as well as plain clothes, and it quickly became evident that there was at least some problem in that area. However, we're not getting that information other than this moment of I've already started uniform presence in the area, proactive patrols both in uniform and plain clothes. We've already made several significant arrests, because most of them involve young offenders. But the purpose of the meeting is to let the community know two things. One, that's why we're there, because we became aware of a problem. So we don't know about problems unless you're telling us, unless they're being reported, whether it's through a radio call or situations like this. Set up, and I'm hoping that we have a good turnout, because ultimately it's the community that's going to benefit from showing.
Is it Lawrence? Is it Orton Park in Lawrence? Are we talking Galloway? Is we talking everything?
Don't stay in just one area. And Orton Park and Lawrence, that there was a bit of an issue, but they don't go to school at Orton Park and Lawrence. Most of them tend to go to school at Cedar Break, right? And so again, kids don't. So we're addressing the community need is for Orton, but
Going to be
on
p.m. and 8 p.m. at 4117 Lawrence Avenue East. There'll be representatives from the police, from the city of Toronto, and from Toronto, and
You said you had a couple follow-up. Speedboard?
Oh, you know what? Somewhere around, I can't remember. I think it was, but the mobile limit is like no more.
Well, and one of the things, the data that we retrieved from it, as well as an audit that was done by the city of Toronto, not by the streets department, showed that like 92% that drive on it drive within 5 kilometers of the speed limit. Situations where we talk about perception can become in the. We've been told, and we did do some enforcement and did catch a few monitors and keeps track of all those speeds. Strips across the road, the city of Toronto does that. Upwards, like I say. And yeah, you're gonna have a few that speed, but 92% are staying within 5 kilometers of the speed limit. That's pretty good. That's very good, actually.
say, I work for a media company. I do the closed caption. It helps a lot of people, and you can close caption in English and Vietnamese, all the language.
That's a very good point, and we can look into that.
Yeah, we didn't produce it, but we can certainly, yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, very valuable. I think I saw a hand over here. I'm not sure. Is there anybody else? Any other? That I don't know.
Joe. Nope. Wrong. Yeah, we moved a different style of community 18. Different things have changed, and a lot of the local politicians are offering skate days of various things. Free to try and use those community.
It's the budget cutbacks of the city. We're trying to keep the.
Were there any other issues? I see somebody leaning over way in the back. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk. First off, I want to suggest, if possible, for the police board to find some money in their budget to get portable microphones so that all of us can hear everything that goes on in here, especially when you're sitting along the edge of the room. That's just a suggestion, and if you do find that, maybe you can implement that. Two, my wife and I, and Alex, this is Heather, the two of us have lived in this area for 38 years. Now, we have problems on our street. We have the city working on it. We have Mr. Ainsley's office working on the problems. There's two homes in particular. There's drug deals going down there. There's people sleeping in a garage that has no roof on it. There's a home right next to it that has been condemned. The hazmat department, the hazmat, fire, and police were there. Street. There's another home which is an illegal boarding house. As an investigator, bins to the top, they tarp the top of the bins and the left. And there's junk screw. Suggested that perhaps maybe they get the fire and check on the codes. But nothing has happened. There's any reason to get a push on this to get these two homes straightened out. Now I know Jennifer has taken notes on this. 2 weeks ago, I believe, at St. Margaret's. And to this day, I haven't seen any results. From you that you can add. Yeah, I know. And I can hardly understand it. And it doesn't seem like he's doing with this. He keeps saying he's going to go to his supervisor and ask him what he can do about it. I've been telling him what to do, yet he doesn't want to do it.
That's that you're speaking of. I'm not sure.
It's Weir Crescent. Two addresses involved are 45 Weir and 46 Weir. What I did get from Peter this morning on the phone was that the owner of one of the homes is out of town. He can't get a hold of it. Obviously, somebody's paying taxes on that property. And if they're paying taxes, they know who that person is. contact that person, clean up the property, get rid of the squatters. Neighborhood might be a little safe.
Sure.
Not just that, the value of my property just might go up. Not the way it is.
Taxation. What I would suggest is, that's a complicated question, so it'll take a complicated answer, but I'm going to suggest that after the meeting, if you could speak with Paul, I definitely want to know the information regarding potential drug address. A lot of times it's a matter of getting our partners, whether it's licensing and standard or as involved. And we've done that on a number of occasions, but it just isn't. They have to build a very solid case before you're dealing with people's homes. That, again, there's a lot more involved. So my suggestion being, and give more details to Paul, and I will make sure that we're looking at it from an enforcement aspect as far as any drug dealing, things like that. When it comes down to illegal boarding houses, that's going to be the city licensing and standards.
So with these people living in during the summer, the one home had X number of people living in. They were doing drugs, and there was one, what do you call it, girl or a woman in particular, she was running around the street naked. She's yelling, and she goes across the street to get drugs from the people on the other.
So did you phone that
I
in?
mean, I have grandchildren.
Did anybody phone that in? Like,
We came in here, and there was one girl on the desk, and that's all that was in the station.
no, but my point being is when you see this female running around, did you phone 911?
911.
Absolutely. Without knowing the background of these two addresses, if I saw whether male or female running around acting kind of crazy, but potentially not clothed, I think
Call 911.
that's a 911 phone call.
To make a point that the day that the hazmat police and fire were there at 45, she ran out in the street naked. And the officer at the time said, "Go back in the house and get some clothes on." I mean, they knew that she was doing this.
Okay, well,
And she goes up and down the street, and then my grandchildren come to have to listen to this. They understand.
yeah, I can't speak to that particular officer, obviously. That would be something, if you knew the date and that, we could look that up.
I'm just saying, you're on the date.
Right. But really, and not just for your situation, but I want to drive that home, is you see something that's well beyond the norm. It's somebody running around the neighborhood naked. That needs to be a 911 call right there and then. To come into the station 2 hours later to report it the next day, whatever the case may be. After the fact, it makes it that much more difficult to deal with the situation. Whereas if that's a 911 phone call,
Yeah, because I've seen the items, I've seen it. My wife's seen it too.
Being naked in public too, we can't just go out and lay a charge for that. We have to get permission from the Minister of Attorney General. So we've been limited in our authority to lay charges for public nudity. So it's not a matter of that officer neglected his or her duty by not arresting them. We can't just do that. We have to get permission from the courts to do that. So there has to be a background story to it that a Crown attorney will listen to and then give us permission or not to move forward with charges. So, and it's in our city we have a number of events where public nudity is accepted and part of the events. So it is not, the times have changed, and public nudity is not in and of itself without the permission. We can't just lay it without permission of the Minister of the Attorney General. It's still against the law. The law is on the books, but we can't lay it without court's permission. You understand what I'm saying?
The red tape is very thick.
Well, I guess what the courts have built upon is the government standards that we will stay out of people's lives and people have a free opportunity to express themselves and to live their lives as they want to, as long as they don't infringe on other people's enjoyment of their life. So that is one of those areas that's a fine line as far as law enforcement is concerned. And we take our direction from the courts. It's not something that we can independently lay a charge on.
It's not that there's not an avenue to help correct that situation. And again, I encourage you to stay after and speak with Paul, because we have the resources. We'll have partnerships with Licensing and Standard, Toronto Fire, and we can visit that, especially, you know, if you feel that there's illegal drug dealing and things like that. So I would encourage you to stick around afterwards so we can get a little more detail as far as information. Okay. I think the superintendent brings up a good point, and not to belabor it, but there's been recent legislation as well. I know some of the frustration at the Gilbert Plaza is an example of it, and we share that frustration. Is people of the generations that have been bringing these issues up are used to saying, well, they call the police and they'll go deal with it. Recent legislation, as of basically a year and a half ago, really inhibits what the police can do in a situation. We go down to the Gilbert Plaza and there's lots of students around. Unless they're committing a criminal offense, we can go up and ask them if they'll talk to us, but they don't have to talk to us. They don't have to respect us or even engage with us. In fact, the legislation speaks to, unless there is a criminal offense and you see it. So it's frustrating because we understand your concerns about this plaza, or we understand concerns about this street, but there are certain things that we're being, by legislation, told we can and cannot do. Okay, so we share that frustration, but we still would like that information related to it. Okay, are there any other concerns? Any other community issues that need to be spoken to? No? Okay, this is typically where we take a bit of a break. I'm going to say 5 minutes, but because it usually turns into 10, so we'll take a 5-minute break. I thank you all for the additional guests, the students from the Police Foundation. The second half is specifically for the CPLC committee. By all means, if you want to stick around and watch. But this is conclude this portion of it, and we'll start up again in about 5-10 minutes.